the idea is you want to be as least restrictive as you can so that you can be as compliant as you can.
Consistency.
While getting the best results.
Yeah.
Now, notice we haven't talked about counting calories, and we're not going to ever in this list.
It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show.
Well, a warm welcome to you all. I'm JJ. I am a life coach, and I eat mostly meat.
I'm Eric. I'm a novelist, and I eat mostly meat too. But if I was advising someone who wanted to lose weight, and that's the only thing they cared about, I don't think I would start at carnivore.
Really?
No. And you know this because we discussed this list before filming this, and that was our little skit to set up the video.
We've pulled back the curtain. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is people think I'm crazy for doing carnivore. I mean, it's getting a little more accepted.
Yeah.
But people do not want to make that jump that I made.
But I don't even know that it's necessary for many people.
Yeah.
It certainly would be beneficial because it is a proper human diet. But if we're talking about weight loss, I think a lot of it has to do with how long have you been eating the SAD diet?
Okay.
And how deranged is your hormones and your metabolism?
Yeah.
But I think there's a step-by-step process that at any step you could stop if your results are what you want. So this is a stepwise system. And the first step, I think, will not shock anyone.
No.
And that is cut out sugar. Don't make any other changes in your SAD diet, but eliminate all the sugar.
Nobody is going to even look sideways at that.
Like if you did that and you said, I'm just not eating sugar, they'd be like,
Yeah.
good for you. I wish I could do that. And the thing is, you can.
All right. And I think we have to include one of the food groups in this. So it's not just sugar.
Do it.
But also fruits.
Yeah. Yeah. Fruits are bags of sugar, and they might have some good nutrition in them, but they come along with some problems.
What about fruit salad? Yummy, yummy.
Well, it says salad in it, and we're not for salads on this channel anyway, even though we eat them occasionally.
What about yogurt with fruit on the bottom?
No.
It's a fruit smoothie.
Read the label. If it says sugar, don't eat it. Now, why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because number one, sugar is a huge contributor to inflammation in the body. And number two, it is the primary blood sugar issue, metabolic strain on the system.
And you are Miss Insulin. And
Yes.
so from that standpoint, you definitely don't want to be dumping loads of sugar into the system.
No, because that will cause those insulin spikes. And insulin, overgeneralized, insulin's such an important hormone. And one of the things it does is tell the body to store fat.
And it will take that sugar that's in excess of what you're burning, and it will turn it into fat and store it in your fat cells.
What about fruit?
The same sugar will do the same thing.
I have to say that you used to tell me long ago that the body treats a slice of wheat bread and that apple as the same thing as a candy bar. And I hated hearing it. I really did. I thought you were going into your father mode, like your father mode.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
The lesson here is just because my father was annoying does not mean he was wrong. So
Yeah.
if people do this and they are used to eating a lot of sugar, they're probably going to end up being hungry because they're not eating as much food.
Yeah.
If they cut that out. So they got to add something in. So that's where step 2 comes in.
All right. Step 2.
And that is prioritize whole food protein. And that means meat
Yes.
and eggs.
Yes. And I'm going to add in, Ben Bickman talks about prioritize protein. Cut the carbs, prioritize protein. Don't fear the fat. So as you're prioritizing whole food protein, don't think that this just needs to be that dry old chicken breast.
No, it can have all kinds of fat on it.
It can have fat, and your body might actually appreciate that since you've cut out a major fuel source of a lot of carbohydrate, a lot of sugar.
Now, at this stage, I don't even really care what the meat is.
No.
It can be steak, it can be pork, it can be bacon, it can be fish. It could even be chicken nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
But if those two things get you to the results you want, and you're happy, then you're done.
What?
If those get you to the results you want and you're happy, then you're done.
Excellent.
But
Yeah.
if you're not there yet, or maybe you feel like, well, I've been eating no sugar and I've prioritized protein and I've done it for a month or 2 months and I still have some fat that I could lose and I'm not making any more progress.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that I would get rid of
Yeah.
is seed oils.
Mm.
And that means you have to read the label, but that basically means you just stop eating processed foods.
So, what are some examples of seed oil? What do you mean by seed oil?
Well, canola oil, which is a pretty common one.
Very.
That's a rapeseed oil. And I guess they changed the name to rebrand it because it was a horrific name. Soybean oil. Now, have you ever seen a soybean?
Yeah.
If you squeeze one soybean, how much oil do you get on your fingers?
I don't think there's any. I don't even think it's greasy.
It's just water, right?
Yeah.
Corn oil.
Corn. Oh, mazola. Remember mazola?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cottonseed oil.
Okay.
Sunflower oil.
Okay.
Safflower oil.
Okay.
Grapeseed oil.
Ooh. There was a big time for a while when there was a company, an MLM, that did only grapeseed oil.
Really?
Yeah,
I
different
didn't know that.
flavors for health purposes.
Rice bran oil. Basically, if it comes from a seed or a bean and they squeezed it and then used a whole bunch of chemicals and heat and deodorizers in a refinery process, it isn't food.
Now, I know this is a little controversial. There's debate about how bad is seed oil for us, and you're saying it's not food. But I think what you led off this step with was that cuts out all processed food.
Yeah.
So whether you think seed oils are evil or not, this is huge because of that.
Yeah. So if you read a label and it has some kind of oil in it, that's not on the menu anymore. And you're going to cut that out. And many people find that that helps move them past a stall, but also inflammation goes down.
Yes.
And people start to feel better. Actually, getting rid of seed oils is one of the big things in Dr. Georgia Eads' Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind.
That is true.
Take a drink.
I didn't bring my drink with me. No, that is true. How long should we be doing these types of steps?
I don't know. I think I would do it for a couple of weeks to a month each if I was going to do this stepwise progression, because the idea is you want to be as least restrictive as you can so that you can be as compliant as you can
Consistency.
while getting the best results.
Yeah.
Now, notice we haven't talked about counting calories, and we're not going to ever in this list.
Yeah, I was thinking 3 weeks-ish too. So we're about on the same page with that. And that gets you time to sort of move through the what the stages of grief and start to feel better on the other side.
Well, with the stuff that are still available, there's so many options,
Okay.
I think, because we haven't even talked about artificial sweeteners.
That's true.
So we're cutting things very strategically here. Now, the next one, though, is a big one.
Huge.
And it will have a big impact if you're not getting the results with the previous 3 steps. Step 4 is going to do it, and it is.
It is cutting grains, beans, seeds. Basically any seed, because the seed is where the most anti-nutrients are stored. Because if you think about it, plants to germinate and succeed evolutionarily, they need to have anti-nutrients in that seed so that the animals and humans don't overconsume those seeds and nuts. So they contain a lot of lectins and phytates, for instance. And so for me, cutting grains and beans and seeds, even though these are part of some of these are part of a paleo diet, makes an enormous difference, mostly in my mental health.
Really?
Really. If I introduce any type of grain into my diet, I notice an immediate dip in my mental health for a few days. It's crazy.
Well, a lot of people have problems with these with their gut.
Yeah.
And so by getting rid of everything we've talked about before, down to the grains and the beans and the seeds, we're now going to be getting into where IBS issues and acid reflux should really become less and less and less.
I had to give up gluten years ago and still continue to eat other grains, but found out when I started wearing a continuous glucose monitor, this trips up my blood sugar the most, which would cause the most insulin resistance. I'm not saying eat sugar because that was number one on the list. My body does better with sugar than it does with grains as far as the blood sugar.
That's weird.
Spike. Very odd. Very odd. So it's somewhat individual to me. I'm not saying everyone would react that way, but it has really seriously made me rethink any grains whatsoever. It's another thing that Dr. Georgia Ede talks about in her mental health book is that these are the first things she cuts as far as plant matter.
So at this stage, you may be thinking, well, isn't this just keto now? Not necessarily, because you could eat some potato, which would be kind of a danger food, but and all of the regular veggies, the cruciferous and the salad veggies are still on the menu.
Yeah.
Although if you're going to put a dressing on a salad, you'd want to be using a really good quality olive oil.
Or avocado.
Or avocado oil or something. But, that's one of the skills you gain as you make progress to this. But if you cut out these things and you get the results you want, stop.
You're done.
You're done. Good. Now, if there's more weight to be lost, there's more steps to take. And this is where I think you introduce the time restricted eating. Now, I had an argument with myself because I thought it might be the first thing.
Oh.
I thought it might be the first item.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. And I don't think so because of the compliance problem. If you tried to do this first and you're eating all the sugar and stuff, you might be putting yourself into a fasting window each day that makes you really hungry, and then it might be harder to stay on it.
Yes.
By this point, having gotten rid of all those other things and emphasizing the whole food proteins, satiety should be good enough that now the eating window, if it hasn't already shrunk, can be played with.
So what would you recommend starting with?
I would start with a 14-hour fast daily with a 10-hour eating window, unless you felt really strong, and then maybe do a 16-8.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would target a 16-8 to 18-6, 18 hours fasted, 6-hour eating window. And obviously you can go way tighter than that, but I don't know that it's really necessary.
Not necessarily, no. Again, I think you're going to feel it out, but you want to make sure that your chemistry is aligned with the eating window. It's sort of what you're saying. If you've done these other things first, your body is ready to eat in this way.
Yeah.
And not be constantly feeding sugar or seed oils into it nonstop. So I like this. And I also like that there's some flexibility there, that you can go to a shorter eating window or a longer eating window. This is really a big part of insulin, though.
That's what I was going to bring up. So go ahead. You're the insulin lady.
Is that not only does this give your body a chance to go into rest and digest mode, so it's good for the parasympathetic nervous system, it also gives your body a time to deal with the glucose that is in it so that your insulin can come down.
Yeah,
and not remain elevated.
and come way down.
Yeah.
And I would tend to design my fast to start after an early dinner. Many people like to skip breakfast and then have a lunch and a dinner. I find that messes with my sleep. It's much better for my sleep to stop eating at 4 to 5 o'clock.
That was remarkable.
Huge difference for me.
Yeah.
So my eating window would typically be breakfast around 8 a.m. and then a meal around 4, 5, kind of pushing it to the latest.
Now, some people can't do that with family obligations and stuff. They have to do a little bit of a later window, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I do agree that pushing it earlier also sort of mimics the circadian rhythms a little more.
The eating window thing can have profound effects for weight loss, but there is a tendency, if you're eating highly palatable things during your eating window, to overeat. And that's why I think strategically getting the sugar and the grains and stuff out first really sets you up for success on having your eating window be instituted.
Yeah. And ideally in that eating window, you're eating meals. So you're not grazing the entire 6 hours or 8 hours. You're eating a meal.
And not snack.
And not snacking.
Okay. So the next one for many people would have been one of the first things they would think of. Aside from calorie counting, when people think of weight loss, they think of exercise. Yep.
Yeah.
Because they're locked in the calories in, calories out, energy balance model. And we don't care anything about that. But this is where adding movement strategically probably makes some sense. But there's always a danger that the more you move, the more exercise you do, the more you're going to want to eat, because you're going to also need to recover and fuel yourself for that. And that's okay. I think that given the available foods at this stage, eating to appetite is appropriate.
And I also feel like, especially if you've implemented the eating window, that you are very in touch with your hunger hormones at this point. So you can tell when you have sort of that boredom, want to go graze type thing, or when it is true hunger because you've done a little extra activity.
Now, the activity that I would recommend is the very, very first one is long walks.
Yeah.
Of a half hour or more. But if you can only do 15 minutes, do that. Or do 3 5-minute walks and get a total of 15. It all depends on where you're starting from. But long walks, preferably in nature or where there's trees, is the best first baseline exercise.
Well, and I like this here too, because for me, I've had a lot of issues with energy, with fatigue in the past, with adrenal problems, hormonal imbalances. And for me, if I tried to move or exercise, it would wipe me out and deplete me. So I really like that this is some gentle walking, and it's this far into the steps where our body is feeling nourished. Our hormones are feeling more balanced. There might be healing to do still, but you're much more in balance by this point too.
Now, if you're up for it, doing some resistance training is an excellent, excellent idea. I would never advise not doing it at any stage of this. But I don't want to I don't want to emphasize it too much for weight loss, because that's not what exercise is for. Ideally, exercise should help you gain muscle mass. Okay, so moving on. This is where if you get to that point and you're living your life and you've lost the weight you want and it's staying off and you're staying compliant, you can be done here.
You can stop.
This is what I would think of as kind of a paleo ancestrally appropriate diet that is maybe dipping you into ketosis overnight. But if you need more progress, this is where going keto makes sense.
Yes.
And to do that, you're now dropping your total carbs below. Some people below 50 can be in ketosis. most, I think it would have to be below 20 grams
Yes.
per day.
Yes.
And you would be very unlikely to maintain that successfully eating sweet potatoes and starchy veggies like that.
That's what I was going to say. This is the point where you are going to probably eat more fat and really focus on eating a little more fat. I'm not talking sticks of butter necessarily, but just eating a little more fat and cutting those starches like you're saying.
And generally speaking, you don't have to track ketones when you're doing keto once you've figured it out. But I think that getting a Keto Mojo and testing is very helpful to figure out what your specific macros are. And the only macros you're really going to need to focus on as you learn what your body needs is the number of carbs and the amount of fat. And those are going to be some levers you're going to have to play with and learn. Now, when I was younger and just doing keto, I could just look at steaks and lose weight.
Yes.
But as I've gotten older, it hasn't been as easy to get in and maintain ketosis. So it just depends on how deranged your metabolism is.
Now, for me, for some reason, back in the day when you would try ketosis or keto diet, and I tried it as well, I did not see any results going keto. And I think that might be because of the next steps.
Okay.
Coming up. The very next step is cutting artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, this is a tough one because this is finally giving up on the sweet. Arguably, we could have said do this way earlier, but I think that having that little sweet crutch with diet sodas or something, and having maybe some keto treats, as long as you're getting the results you want, and it's not sending you into Sugarland.
Yes. Don't let it send you to Sugarland.
Which is an actual place in Texas. But if it's not sending you into sugar binges, then maybe it's okay from the perspective of weight loss. But yeah, this is the point where cutting artificial sweeteners comes in, and I had to do this.
Yes.
And it broke me through a long plateau. Now, I wasn't super overweight at that point. I was at about 180 pounds, 184. And then I just cut them out and weight dropped.
Yeah, those last 10-ish pounds, they say, are the hardest to lose.
Now, why would an artificial sweetener that has no energy content had me holding weight?
Well, I think it's our friend insulin again.
Definitely could be.
There's a thing called the cephalic insulin response, which is the body responding to sweetness or even the thought of sweetness by sending a little sort of preparatory phase 1 insulin into the system.
To this day, anytime I think about my wife, I get a cephalic phase insulin release. I think there's another reason why artificial sweeteners might cause people to hold weight is I think that having the sweet, like a diet soda along with a meal can actually encourage you to eat more.
Oh, yes.
Meat and eggs and bacon and whatever else is on the menu, with every sip of that dampening satiety signals. So you might actually overeat a little bit.
Excellent point.
As well. So I think getting rid of that at stage 8 though it's beautiful, because if you've got the results you want and you've made it to this point and you don't need to go to stage 8, don't.
Yeah.
But if you do, stage 8 it is. Artificial sweeteners are out. Now, the next one, some may have intuitively already done by this point.
Yes.
But if you haven't, like I hadn't, this is a point to do the experiment. And that is cut dairy.
Yes.
Now, this is a very difficult moment for some people for whom heavy cream and massive quantities of cheese on eggs is part of what makes the diet so far sustainable. But getting rid of dairy really did help me. It reduced some inflammation. It helped me not overeat, because when there's dairy on the food, I don't moderate it as well.
Yeah.
So it is the next step to break through a plateau if you have one. Plus, many people will find that even if they don't have a dairy gut problem, they may have just an inflammation problem generally with dairy that they don't realize. So things can start to clear up that were kind of mysterious before.
Now, interestingly, I don't feel like I don't feel like I need to cut dairy out 100%. Yet, if I eat too much dairy, I do notice that I don't feel optimal. And that I do start to feel a little puffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have dairy occasionally now, but it's not in massive quantities.
Yeah.
And I don't use heavy cream. And we don't make like a dairy-based ice cream substitute very frequently. So we're not constantly binging on that stuff. All right. So that's the first 9 steps.
All right.
We have not made you go carnivore for the first 9 steps. And if someone starting with SAD had done these incrementally and spent 3 weeks at each zone, they would have made enormous progress. Would it have always been easy? Would there have been no reversals? No guarantees. But the next step,
Step 10.
this is the one where you may just have to pull the trigger and go carnivore.
And go carnivore.
And what that means is don't eat plants. You could be carnivore and have some dairy in some circles. We're not gatekeepers.
No.
We're fine with that. You could even be carnivore and drink coffee.
Radical.
Yeah. But this is the point where if all of these other things have not quite gotten you there, going down to this level might be the answer. And what's amazing is there's an enormous community of people who've done this. And this is where the really, really transformative things have happened.
Yes. Yes.
And there's an almost infinite number of YouTubes on this, but we highly recommend Dave Mack's channel.
Oh, yes.
Which is, what is it, Low Carb Life or Zero Carb Life?
I think it's Zero
One
Carb.
of those is Kelly Hogan. My Zero Carb Life?
That's Kelly Hogan.
It's one of those.
Dave Mack.
Dave Mack. We were on that. You should watch that episode that we were on. And get inspired by all of the people who've done it and hear how they've done it and what their tips and tricks are. We've got well over 100 videos and a bunch of lives you can watch back to see what the lifestyle is all about. So that is not the end of the steps.
No, it's not.
There's one more.
There is one more.
And I will hand it off to you because this is your bailiwick.
This is a personal favorite of mine. So this is fasting. So we already talked about the eating window, which can be called intermittent fasting. But at this point, when I say fasting, I'm talking about usually doing at least 24 hours of no eating. So it's not even OMAD where you might be going 23 hours. You're going the full 24 hours or more. Now, I don't have experience with extended fasting, which lasts for days, but I do fasting for about 42 to 48 hours. And this is what I feel just sends me into the stratosphere. If it's post-holidays or even during the holidays, I can use this to sort of manage those extra little slip-ups that might happen or the variations in the diet that might happen. And not only does it keep my inflammation down, not only does it keep my weight down, but it keeps my mood up. And I've already talked about it, even though this is not about weight loss. For me, mood and energy are so very important. So doing that fasting really, really does support that. Now, again, you're not starting there. You are waiting until your body is nourished and adapted and ready to move into that without a lot of white knuckle, without a lot of struggle.
Yeah. So those are our steps to progress from eating the sad American diet to whatever works to get you where you want to be. Every day stronger.
Every day more blessed.